Hey there! From this video, you will learn about two approaches to changing your lifestyle: forcing yourself versus building habits. We will also bust the three popular myths about habits, like the one that says that it takes 21 days to build a habit. Spoiler, it's not true. There are different ways of changing your lifestyle. If we simplify, we can outline the two main approaches. Approach number one: motivation and brute forcing. It's when you say to yourself, I really want to be fit and sexy, and as of tomorrow I will start waking up at 6 o'clock to exercise before work, and I will only eat salad leaves and chicken breasts and no more sugar. And you really try to stick to that commitment. When all your friends are eating donuts, you are squeezing your willpower and saying no. When you really want to sleep a bit longer in the morning, you force yourself to get up and go to the gym. You are strong, you are motivated, you are building your new self. And that lasts for 1.5 or 2 days approximately. I bet that by the end of this week, you will get back to your old habits, feeling as a complete and total failure. When I see all those Facebook groups and YouTube channels with motivational images and videos saying, just do it, you just need to maintain your motivation, when I see that, I just want to cry. Because for the most people, that doesn't work. Motivation can support you for a limited period of time, but it will fade eventually, leaving you frustrated before you even see the results you were working for. The alternative approach would be to set up your environment in a way that makes it easier for you to exercise regularly or eat healthier instead of forcing yourself all the time. There are different ways of achieving that. One of them is to build the new habits. In psychology, habit is defined as an automatic response to a specific context. To make it simple, habit is your autopilot behavior. The behavior you don't really plan or think over. You just act on autopilot. Brushing your teeth in the morning may be an example of a habit. One research concludes that up to 43% of our daily behaviors are habits. Since this behavior is automatic, it doesn't depend on motivation and willpower as much as other types of behavior. Let me illustrate that with an interesting experiment, which was conducted by the psychologists studying habits in 2011. The experiment participants were invited to watch a series of short movies in the cinema theater, and they were given a popcorn of two types. Some participants received fresh popcorn, produced 1 hour before the experiment. The others received stale popcorn, produced 7 days before the experiment. The participants who had a strong popcorn eating habit kept eating that stale popcorn despite it tasted awful. When later they were asked if they liked the popcorn, they said no, the taste was bad, but they kept eating because that was their habit. Which basically means that even if we don't like some activity, it doesn't really matter as long as we have developed a habit. For you, that means that if you manage to turn your exercise activity into a habit or autopilot behavior, your motivation and willpower will no longer be that important in helping you to maintain physically active lifestyle. Don't get me wrong. When the habit is formed, behaving out of this habit becomes easy. But to build a habit, you need to invest a lot of efforts. You need to select a proper context cue that will trigger a habit. You need to make the habit as simple as possible in the beginning. And you need to repeat the habit enough times before it becomes automatic. I have a whole course dedicated to the habit formation. You can find the link to that course in the description of that video. During this weekly challenge, we won't have the time to go through all the elements of habit formation, but we'll touch some of them. Now let's have a look at the popular myths about habits. In my experience, there are three most popular myths about habit formation. Number one, it takes 21 days to build a habit. Number two, to build a habit, you simply need to repeat the behavior many times. And number three, to To build a habit, you need to reward yourself. Let's look at each of them one by one and check what's wrong there. The 21 days myth. I'm not sure where it comes from, but often you can read or hear that you need to repeat some behavior for 21 days and then it becomes a habit. First of all, there are very few researches that actually measure how long it takes to build a habit. One of the recent researches found out that on average it took 66 days to form a new habit. But please pay attention that this number is an average. In some cases, people spent 10 to 15 days before the habit was formed. In other cases, it took them more than 200 days. Researchers believe that this large spread in the data is explained by the difference in habits complexity. It's likely that more simple habits take less time to form in comparison to more complex habits. It's also suggested that individual differences between people play a role in the speed of a habit formation. In a nutshell, there is no fixed amount of days that will guarantee you a new habit. It all depends on the complexity of a new habit and your individual traits. And as you can see, the average duration confirmed in the scientific experiment seems to be longer than 21 days. So, be patient. Myth number 2. In habit formation, repetition is all that matters. As current studies show, just repeating a behavior is not enough to make it habituated. It's essential to repeat the behavior in the consistent context. The habit links in our brain to the specific context, time of the day, location, preceding behavior, and others. And as soon as you face the context, your brain tells you, it's time to repeat the habit. We may call that associative learning. For example, many people have a habit of brushing their teeth right after they visited a restroom in the morning. They repeated brushing their teeth after the toilet in the morning many times, and that sequence of actions became habituated. Here's another proof of this phenomenon. Have you ever noticed that you often lose many of your healthy habits when on vacation? That happens because when you leave your home, the context, the environment around you change. And as you know now, our habits are closely related to the specific context. So, to build a habit, you need to determine the right context and repeat your new habit specifically in this context. And finally, myth number 3. To build a habit, you need to reward yourself. If you've ever read anything about the neuropsychology of a habit formation, you may have come across the idea that to create a habit, you need to reward yourself. For example, after a morning run, you should make yourself a cup of coffee to create a positive mental association with your new habit. Well, that may be true in some cases and for some types of rewards. However, the recent studies show two interesting things related to using the external rewards in a habit formation. First, it seems like the external reward is not necessary for a habit to be formed. In the research conducted by Philippa Lelli and her colleagues in 2010, the participants managed to build the different new habits without any rewards. Second interesting fact is that sometimes those external rewards can harm the process of habit formation. Some researchers believe that if your targeted behavior is closely related in your brain to the expectation of a reward that comes after the behavior, it may be harder for you to turn that behavior into a habit. In other words, if you go for a run only because you expect a hot cup of coffee after and not because you enjoy running, this running habit is less likely to stick. I hope now you can see that habit formation is a fascinating and interesting topic deserving your attention. Please let me know if you have any questions and see you in the next video. From the next video, you will learn how to define the best time for your new habits.